I came back to India. I knew it in my heart that this is not the place. Hi everyone. We get a lot of messages and comments on how Meher and I built our careers abroad. To address some of these questions, here I am today. My name is Shashank. I currently work in London and I'm going to take you through my journey. So 2006 is basically when I started my engineering in computer sciences. I finished that in 2010 and I embarked on my professional journey since then. I was very fortunate after my engineering degree to just find a job straight away and join an IT company back then. That's where I started my career. 13 years down the line, here I am currently working for a fintech based out of London, the UK. Once I completed my engineering, being very honest, I absolutely did not know what I wanted to do. All I knew was I just need to get a job and start somewhere. I worked as an IT analyst for a company called NIT Technologies, which was based out of the NCR region. Good thing was I could return back to New Delhi, which is my hometown, and start working. I think about 8 months into the job, I was very fortunate that I got an opportunity to work at my client, which was a bank called KBC Bank based out of Belgium. I moved there. Initially, it was supposed to be only a 1-month assignment, which eventually converted into almost a year-long engagement. They were quite happy with the kind of work me and my team were producing, so they wanted us to extend there. This gave me a great chance to not just work with colleagues from all over the world, but also explore Europe when I was young. I got a chance to travel across different countries in Europe. I still remember I was 22. I was traveling to Amsterdam and Paris, looking at these wonderful things across the globe, which I had only heard about. After this engagement was done, I came back to India. I knew it in my heart that this is not the place that I wanted to stay in, at least when I was young. So I made a conscious decision of trying something different. I left my job. I started working for a startup and we used to work in the healthcare sector. Again, a few months into the job, I got a small stint in New York this time. Now, when I was in New York, I always looked at it from a perspective, if I can stay here in the longer run, would I enjoy it? Would I love it? I always compared it to how my life was when I was in Belgium. So I was able to compare different aspects of how the life personally and professionally was in Europe versus how it was going to be in America. This is when I was very clear in my mind, guys, that all I want to do is move to Europe. Obviously, there was always a big barrier of language, but I was very sure in my heart that language is not going to be the biggest matter for me. I always wanted to be in an area where I can travel a lot, learn a lot more, and not just focus on my professional life, but also the personal life. This is when I decided, okay, it was time for me to actually consciously try and get my foothold back into Europe. After I went back to Delhi from New York, I started preparing for the GMAT exam. I know Meher keeps talking a lot about GMAT, GRE, etc. Trust me, it's not a straightforward exam. You definitely need to put in some hours to prepare for it. I remember I did study for about 2 months or so and was able to get a score of 680 back then. It wasn't the best, but it did give me an opportunity to start applying into decent universities, I would say. Now, like I said, I always wanted to stay in Europe. Obviously, I had to then start making decisions by keeping in perspective my financial position, my family's financial position, the cost benefit of doing an MBA abroad, be it in which country, language barrier. So after keeping all these aspects in my mind, I could drill down to 2 different places where I could have been. One is obviously the UK and the second was Netherlands. Now, the biggest part about Netherlands was it was a stable economy. It was growing. It was very expat friendly, and business in Netherlands till date is actually done in English, which was very surprising for me to find out. And when I learnt about it, that's where I wanted to be. So I consciously applied to the Erasmus University, which is based out of Rotterdam. It's one of the best universities in Europe, and fortunately I got in. This is the university which was also financially affordable for us, for me and my family back then. To be very honest, majority of the funding that came in for the education was an education loan. I did not shy away from taking a loan because I knew I will definitely get a job and I will be able to repay it if I plan my finances. So when I was in Netherlands for my master's degree, this was back in 2015, I remember, moving to Netherlands, I was extremely excited. I had a cohort of about 120 people And the interesting thing was that all 120 candidates were actually from 31 different nationalities. It was a very unique blend of people from all over the world. There were people of the age of 25, and there were classmates, I still remember, of the age of 42, 43 as well. So there was absolute diversity, and there was so much to learn from each and every one of them. Because it was a one-year course, everything was condensed into a short period of time. Therefore, we had to do a lot of projects together. We had to do a lot of group activities together, and it kept us busy throughout that period. I still remember 1 year just went by in a flash, but that 1 year was probably one of the best times I had in my life. Now, as soon as I was almost done with my master's degree, I still remember we also had an opportunity to do an internship while we were studying. So last semester, usually in a master's program, is related to electives, and electives are subjects which you want to select from. These are not mandatory subjects, but you only need to select from a list of courses that you actually want to learn about. So I had selected a few courses around startups, entrepreneurship, because that is something that always attracted me. Fortunately, after completing my electives, or while actually I was left with one or two, I got an internship to work with a venture capital fund. Now, working with a venture capital fund was quite a unique experience. This is where startups were coming to us and pitching to us, and we were making a decision if we should be investing in these startups or not. I did that for about 5 or 6 months. Unfortunately, the company did not have the license to apply for a sponsored visa. Therefore, they could not give me a job. And back then, the only thing we cared about was getting a job. I had a big loan on my head, and in that kind of scenario, obviously I can understand everyone would want to get into a different job as soon as possible. But I knew that this could have been a scenario, so I had already started applying just to make sure I have something in my back pocket if in case the licensing part does not work out. So I had an offer from KPMG and Deloitte, two of the big fours, and both the organizations back then used to give or sponsor visas for expats. So I decided to join KPMG in Amsterdam and to work in the risk department. So I worked in KPMG for about 2.5 years or so, and that's when I met my wife, Meher. To be honest, I had an absolutely fantastic time in Netherlands. I could see myself living there for a few more years if I was by myself. But at this point in time, I wanted to make a decision that was not just important from a professional perspective, but also from a personal perspective. That's when Meher and I together decided that I should move to London. It was more of an English-speaking country, obviously, as you all know, guys. And Meher was already living here and working here, so it was obviously an easier move for us than for her to move to Amsterdam. So I moved to the London office, still with KPMG though. What I want to highlight specifically is that it wasn't an internal move. I had to then apply again to the opportunities that were available in the London office. Now, I have been in London for the last 5 years. These 5 years have just passed by in a flash, to be honest. I have traveled extensively. I have met so many new people, and funny enough, I have so many Indian friends and families around us here in London. I'm absolutely surprised. I can't even tell you. Sometimes it feels I'm back in India. After working with KPMG in London and in Amsterdam, I think I hit a point where I wasn't learning anymore. I had the best times, I had the best colleagues, but I wanted to challenge myself with something new as well. And like I mentioned, I was always fascinated by startups, etc. I think one thing I want to mention is there's always been a theme of finance, IT, and startups throughout my career. My first job was about IT. It was in an IT company, but focused on a bank. And KPMG, I was only working in a financial sector, so all my clients were banking. And as I mentioned, I did get an opportunity to work for a venture capital fund as well. So there was always a theme of entrepreneurship, startups, finance, and IT. So I just wanted to get back to that zone. That's when I decided I need to challenge myself and then get out of my comfort zone and look for something that actually stimulates me on a daily basis. So last year is when I started applying for something new, something different. And I got an opportunity from this fintech called Revolut. Revolut is an organization which has been running for about 7 or 8 years now and has about 30 million customers globally. So now, guys, next month I complete 5 years in London. 5 years in London means that I can apply for something called the ILR. ILR means Indefinite Leave to Remain. Once I complete 5 years and get my ILR, I'm allowed to stay in the country without any sponsored or without any sponsorship provided by different companies. So I'm at my will of the kind of company I want to choose, more than being dependent on a company to provide me sponsorship to be in the UK. Our overarching agenda was obviously to be in a position where we have the opportunity to even apply for the British passport. So overall, that sums up my journey in brief. So last 5 years in London, I've been about traveling, meeting new people, obviously working on our personal and professional lives. Meher has been absolutely outstanding in setting up MSB Vision in the last 5 years as well. I want to make an active effort in supporting her in this journey and making a few videos of my own, which I hope actually does help some of you guys. In the next few videos, I want to go into the depth of each of these areas. But to do so, I first want to understand from you guys what is the most important aspect for you. If you guys want to have a session with me, or if you want me to create more videos on these topics, I'm more than happy to do so. There are 4 things which I want to specifically talk about, mention, that might actually help you decide your future course of action. First thing I want to mention is that if you want a job which is abroad, which is say in Europe or in the US, it is possible, guys. It is absolutely possible. You just need to work out your own journey, and it is possible to have that. The second thing I want to say is that it's always possible to pivot in your career. So guys, I started from an IT analyst in an IT company, and now I work in the risk department for a fintech. There has been a common theme of finance and IT in my career, but it's always possible to pivot into a different domain, into a different kind of industry, or into a different geographical location. All you have to do is keep learning, keep your eyes and ears open for new opportunities, and if you think that you want to pursue something, absolutely go for it. Third thing I want to say is a master's degree, or going for a master's degree, is a difficult decision to make. I know everyone wants to go for it, but it requires tremendous planning. It requires to think about your finances, think about the kind of education you want, think about the kind of jobs you want eventually. So you have to think about all these aspects. You can't just make a split decision. And the last thing I want to say is keep yourself updated, guys. Keep yourself updated. The market is changing so rapidly in the last few years. Every year we talk about, or we see some kind of new developments coming in. We have been talking about AI for a long time, but the kind of developments that are happening in the recent past are absolutely life-changing for anyone and everyone. So overall, guys, those were the final tips I wanted to share with you. That's my journey in brief, like I mentioned. So I'm going to drill into these areas in the next few videos. So tell me what you want to learn from my experience about. I will be happy to create more videos for those specific topics going forward. Thank you for listening to me, guys. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you find my journey useful. See you soon again. Take care. Bye.